Hiya, here's a wee video review that I'm just cobbling together here for the Filco Majestouch 2 10 keyless S, as they call it, keyboard where I just won off of the keyboard company at the Death Authority Awards 2018. Here's the box. What do you get inside of it? Well, it would be nice if it was like this by default. This actually is my own set of caps I've put on here. These are dice up cherries, which are a good upgrade compared to the ones which come by default with the Filco. It's got the usual kind of thing that you can expect, very similar to what was on the Cooler Master, what do they call it again? No Touch. It's early. When you put on something thicker, especially nice PPT caps like this, of course, it makes the heart and soul of the keyboard nerd sing, because it really brings out more of the quality of what the keyboard's about. Cheapo caps are always going to get in between you and what the board's really true to itself. So these guys here, well, I mean, they're worth more than the keyboard, but that aside, I think that they present the keyboard in its most accurate form. So what I'm going to do is just like type away on it and then compare it to some of these nearby boards I've got here, each of which has a specific point to make. So for a start, these are silenced MX Reds, MX Pink, I think the box actually calls them. Not the loudest, but quite smooth. They're smoother than the linear MX that I'm used to. If you really whack it, you do get some of that Filco reverberance from its plate, but you really do have to whack it to actually get that. It's not too bad. The actual sound of typing on this, I'm holding onto the phone, so this video quality is not going to be particularly good for this. But if I shut up for a moment and do some Faco typing here, that J key, incidentally, it's very low profile because it's cherry, and also it has the homing dish that's a bit louder than other keys. These are more like it. And it's not silent. Keyboards never are when they're mechanical keyboards, but it's pretty damn quiet. This camera's right up next to it. And of course it's a completely standard 10 keyless layout. I've got Nancy, obviously, and a nice BBC Micro made in Japan cap there. Now what I'm going to do is compare it to the Real Force I've got here. The Real Force, this is a standard Real Force 10 keyless that has almost all of its standard caps. I put on some extra ones. I had to get rid of those horrible Windows keys as well, so it's got a couple of arrows on there. And this is the out-of-box experience you get with a Real Force, of course. The thing is, this Real Force is damped in some keys with some of Hypersphere's silencing rings. I believe the arrow keys and most of the mods, I think, so I remember. So, in other words, it can sound a bit quieter than the Filco. They're comparable, but if I use some keys which aren't damped, I'm pretty sure I didn't damp the function right, there's a lot more clack up at the top. There's a plasticky kind of clack. I don't mind a clack, but I actually really like a damped clack. Some stuff in there, compared to slap. It's that slapping that an upstroke damp is all about taking out. So if I was to actually bother my arse and put a whole bunch of damping rings in this Real Force, it would be the quieter keyboard for sure. At the moment, it's a bit of a mix. However, I do have over here a naturally damped Type S HHKB. It's sort of at the front of my desk where it might be a bit wobbly, though, so I'm not sure if it's going to sound right. But if I see, no slap out of this. That's the keyboard wobbling. You see why I like small keyboards. This is a small standing desk that I've got everything crammed onto at the moment. Now, as Kairos pointed out, the spacebar is, of course, the loudest key on pretty much any keyboard. What's it like on this guy? It might wobble on the desk. That's a combination of levels. I'll pop it over somewhere else. Just pop it right on top of the Filco. don't think this will help. Oh, that's more like it. See, what's happening is that stab sound. There's quite a different sound to just the thwack of plastic topping out on any key against its housing. It's like kind of metallic whack, 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 whack. And what are the co-star stabs like in the Filco? Actually better. Now, speaking of stabilizers, I did have to ask Matteo for some help to fit them to this thing as an advice. I was finding the inserts, so co-star stabilizers, they have these little plastic bits that plug into the two outside bits of caps. I'm used to cherry stabilizers and the Topre ones where you just pull the key off, even if it's a nice big one like this guy, and there's 3 bits for it to sit into underneath. But with co-star, as all you guys will probably know already, you have to put in the 2 outside positions and hook them into a piece of wire, which seems like a lot of faffing around to me. And unfortunately, with every key set I was trying, including these cherry caps, but also SAs and DSAs, PBT and ABS, the little plastic mounts were just sliding right out when that's completely maddening when you're trying to put it back together. You're trying to fire into a piece of wire and the things are sliding around. Apparently, you're supposed to use a bit of PTFE tape or plumber's tape. You wrap that around the wee stabilizer insert, and yeah, it does actually bung in quite nicely. And it doesn't stick it in there either. It makes it move in quite nicely, hold in position, but it still comes out well. So it's a good wee trick, that. Again, more monkey business, but it works. Now, the thing about silent stress is because Cherry only came out with them, there's always a thing about something, isn't there? Because Cherry only came out with them quite recently, they're all being made with the retooled equipment, as I understand it. So, these switches are newer than these switches. Now, these are actually MX Blacks, but they're plate-mounted MX Blacks, which I don't have many plate-mounted Cherry keyboards around here, so this is why I got the Access IS. It's got some nice big SAs on it, and it is undamped. That is the linear and MX sound that I'm used to, as in bugger all sound in the middle except for either end. So when you press it down, you get on the bottom and then on the top. So you get this on and off sound in between with nothing. Now, this board isn't too bad. I'm not sure when this Access IS was made, like 2000 or something. So the switches aren't as linear as I'd like. When you go and press one directly, you can feel the kind of scratchiness of that, especially if you wiggle it around a little bit. You don't get any of that with this guy. It's pretty smooth. I do find the Real Force ones to be extra smooth. This is something which is really superb about Topre switches. When you press them slowly, which I do tend to do when I'm thinking, I'll start like slowing down my typing. And oh yeah, you get that whole such smoothness. The one that's a cup rubber, man. These guys, well, some of them are a little bit loud. You hear that? Not as quiet, but it is pretty good. And given that it's half the price of the Real Force, it is then a question of like, where do you want to make your compromise? If you have ungodly amounts of money, then yeah, go for a Real Force, or indeed an HHKB, which is totally the one to actually get. But the Real Force is a solid board too, because I mean, apart from this gap here and these ones here, it's completely stock. They come with as good a caps as money can buy, and well, the space bars can be a little bit loud. This one isn't too bad, but compared to this, yeah, they're about the same. This my HHKB is a bit louder. Something that got on the front of the desk is what I blame it on the desk. Let's put you back here. There we go. It's not shaking that, but yeah. I mean, where I actually press spacebar, to be honest, is with my right thumb, right between the N and M keys. And I can type it very quietly on the HHKB, but right now while holding onto a phone and everything is a bit different. I mean, I'm not exactly typing up, but if you don't like 60%, then HHKB is out for you, and a Real Force, you can get real size, you can get 10 keyless, you'll set. But money. Now, the Filco This, oh, and of course the real force, you'd need to get it in Type S to be comparable with this guy. And the Type S ones are a good bit more expensive. So this guy does come sounding nice out of the box, unless you're a weirdo like me, I should painstakingly press keys like that to evoke their weird sounds. They don't feel as scratchy as that. That's just me being very unfair. I don't like the stabilizers that much, but they feel okay. The right shift is the crap one, because the stabilizer inserts are here and here. There's plenty of excess range on the end, so you can make it swing around quite a bit. You can't really do that with the spacebar so much. It's much better stabilized compared to that key. The other ones are all fine. They're good and quiet too, these stabilizers, and they definitely feel snappier than cherries, which is the main thing that everybody always compares with them. But yeah, these caps, I mean, again, I'm juggling around with the phone here, so I'm not going to go digging out the normal caps here to see. They're all black anyway, with that kind of crummy yellow, well, they are black caps made of ABS. They will shine like crazy. There'd be a patch right here after about a week with me, with my thumb right in that spot, which will just not happen with this key, because this is PBT, this is PBT, this is PBT as well. You can shine those, but you need to take a long-term approach to make it happen. ABS, like, it's going to happen right overnight. Also, of course, die sub, die sub, die sub. You see what my taste is like. These legends are completely flush with the keys, like double shots are as well. So you can feel very easily where the homing bumps are, let alone where the dished homing indicators are on the cherry caps as well. These legends won't peel off or crumble off, which is probably what will happen with the stock ones that Filco supplies you. However, of course, MX's big advantage is you can put a whole bunch of different caps on them. If I can pull back my Access keyboard here, you can get lunacy like these, which do lend. See how this is wobbling around to the front of the desk. Oh, incidentally, this is what a spacebar is like when it doesn't have a stabilizer on it at all. This spacebar, this is a matrix keyboard. It's just a straight up grid of MX blacks in this case, in an X and Y. And so large keys just sit on multiple switches. Suppress them in the middle, that's the idea. They do get a little bit weird towards the end. They also feel heavier. These guys are 2 switches, so they're twice as heavy. And this is a T-Pro spacebar, I believe, which, this is all from round 5. This sits on 4 switches, so once you press it in the middle, you get reassuringly heavy spacebar. It's just like using an XT. And actually, it's not that badly stabilized, given that it's completely insane that it's on 4 switches. It definitely goes all the way down, no matter where you press it. So these are ABS. These are really nice double shots, but they will yellow if I leave them out in daylight. Well, maybe not this time of year here. And they will shine. You can see that I don't type on this one very much. I'm yet to fiddle around with this controller. I want to make it much more useful. But yeah, you can get colors like this with double shots, which, well, we'll see what becomes available on Topre, but that is MX's strength, besides for all the difference between clicky switches and tactiles and so forth, is the third-party support. All these signature plastics caps are MX mount only, not going to fit on these 2 guys up here. You are stuck with the very nice ones that came with it in the first place. Whether that is a blessing or a curse is entirely down to you. So, besides for this guy, he does have a nice, very vintage, annoying to people late at night, I can tell you, sound. These 3 are pretty whisper quiet, and I must say that I am quite a fan of the silenced MXs. I like that you don't have to fit your own rings. I like that they are an out-of-the-box solution in the switch department. It's the caps which you need to bring your own, and yeah, faff around with the stabs. I mean, the stab inserts, there's only that, and that, which you need to do plus stuff if you want a numpad, if you have one. I don't. Numpads. So, it's always the thing with keyboards, even though if anybody was to like come and ask me, hey, I got loads of dough, what keyboard should I get? I just want to go straight to a great keyboard. Well, I'm kind of pointing it at the Real Forcer because that is the one that I point someone to, no matter like what their taste was or something. If they just want to have a flash keyboard that is straight off, that was definitely going to feel high end, and they're almost certainly going to really like, then a Real Forcer is the way to do that. But if you want to customize anything, a real force is, there's no hiding back from the fact that MX is the mainstream platform in mechanical keyboards. So a real force, you're buying into a more narrow experience. It's always going to be good. They are really nice boards, but if you like faffing around, and if you like caps with ducks on them, and all the other things you can get in group buys, then MX does have a great advantage that way. And therefore, these pink MXs are very interesting to me. Not so much just in the price perspective. It is nice that this keyboard is half the price of the real force, but because of the compatibility, it is, in a way, today's just as interesting as the Nova Touch was a few years ago. The Nova Touch, and I had to go dig out one from the shelves over here, and I'm not going to go traipsing around just now, but the Nova Touch had big problems that this keyboard doesn't have. The Nova Touch needs to have rings fitted throughout, or otherwise it sounds hideous. This guy, no such problem. It sounds just fine out of the box, and it's compatible with all the same vast array of caps that the Nova Touch is as well. But the Nova Touch does feel a bit better. The Nova Touch doesn't feel quite as nice as a real force. It's this weird kind of halfway house, and they don't make them anymore anyway, so oh well. As soon as things are discontinued, you're into vintage keyboard territory, and then I'm going to start like pulling out my Model Fs and everything and going all OCD about that. And this is not the review for that. I've already been whittering for several hours now, it feels like. But I think I've covered the points, because this guy here, notice I'm doing that slow movement thing again. Yeah, and hear that? There's a bit of inconsistency between the switches in terms of that slow sound. That since when are you pressing N very slowly? N is like a one-off shot key, isn't it? But overall, and also the build quality of this thing is just fine. It's got a nice solid case. It's not particularly egregious in its branding or anything. It's alright. I don't like the fixed cable, I must admit, but I don't like the fixed cable on the real force either. That big cable you're seeing is actually like a mains cable to my monitor. I much prefer socketed solutions like Hassey's controller on my HHKB, and of course I much prefer Bluetooth overall anyway. Oh, one criticism actually, I just noticed it by looking at the front legends on the HHKB. The real force has an integrated numpad, and for the strange occasion when I have to go typing in a bunch of digits, I do like to have an integrated numpad in my 10 keyless. This guy, I mean, the cherry caps aren't going to tell you anyway, but this one does not have it. It has caps lock and scroll lock indicators. I've never seen scroll lock even turn on once because I'm on the Mac. The real force has a num lock mode, which actually toggles its numpad in the same, it's exactly the same I think as the SSK, which is what I'm most used to for this. I don't think the SSK is a 00 key though, so that's nice I suppose if you're going to do checks or something. The absence of that on this fella is of no concern to me, but something which is annoying is, so the sequence of mods. I'm a Mac user and an iOS user. I like to hook up a keyboard to the iPad, and actually it's the first thing I did with the Filco. Hooked it straight up to the iPad, and of course encountered the problem that you, on the Mac versus iOS, you can say to OS 10, hey, swap around the mods, so you can specify whatever orientation, like you can change caps lock to anything as well. You can't do that on iOS. It expects the keyboard to just be the right way around, so I was having to like unlearn my muscle memory, like commands actually there instead. It drive me crazy. So it's not a great keyboard out of the box for iOS, but I think that's a little bit of a niche play on my part anyway. And underneath here, in this C shape above the arrow keys, lies a detachable controller. I think I haven't actually taken this keyboard apart yet, but I do remember there was something called the Pegasus hoof that you could buy and replace one that's in here. And there's actually a whole sequence of pins around that. I mean, I'm pointing to the plastic, you can't see it, but under here, the matrix of the keyboard is fully exposed to pins, which means it's replacement controller friendly, and like maybe I could put Bluetooth in there someday or something. It's one of those things that's just like a kind of, that'd be a nice idea, because I didn't like this fixed cable, especially don't like the way it comes out. I do admire that it has some whatever you call that. I know the name of those things. But the wee dongle on it that stops it from getting too bent out of shape when it comes out of the board. The Real Force doesn't have that, and this cable gets like sort of kinks in it because of the way it goes through its cable management, which I don't like either. Again, cables, ugh. So I would ultimately like to take it to no cable authority, but see, that's the thing, you're diving straight into the customize everything vortex that is mechanical keyboards, and Filcos are one of like the, I don't know if gold standard is quite the right term, but it is a solid, well-supported standard in the custom community. You can do all sorts of stuff with a Filco, including like a factory-ready replacement controller. And yeah, sure, I'd like to put a port on there and have a detachable cable instead. I'd like to be able to assign my own modifier keys in sequence, which you can't do on the Nova Touch either. It's a problem which I have encountered before, of course. Is there even a dip switch on the back of the Real Force? I can't even remember. Because the truth of the matter is, what I mostly use with the iPad is the Bluetooth HHKB. It's smaller, easy to carry around, and it's Bluetooth, so I don't have to have like a stupid adapter hanging out the side of the iPad as well. It's got the Hasys controller in there, so it's completely programmed. I've got like macros and things, let alone my own. Well, I could move about all the modifiers are actually just fine as is with with an HHKB. So yeah, I'm very spoiled for choice in that department. This kind of criticism probably isn't actually all that relevant, and I think therefore I've pretty much exhausted this review, which isn't actually what I had in mind, but apparently I can just natter at the drop of a hat anyway. So the Majestouch 2. Yeah, there's no tip switches on the back of here. It's got nice rubberized feet and everything though, and some warning stickers that say do not remove, you'll void your warranty. However, in its box, in the very Japanese instructions that it comes with, it does also tell you in a small English panel that the warranty is void if bought outside of Japan anyway. So don't let that get in your way of opening it up and having a look around. I haven't actually had a reason to go in there yet. I don't have plans to do anything much of that controller except at some point in the future. And fortunately, everything about this keyboard works, and these are pretty solid switches. I don't have fears about having to pull them out and do mods or solve chattering issues and so forth in the future. Because there's something that I can't stand is boards that start degrading over time. If I could put up with nonsense like that, I just go with the built-in like membrane boards that are in everything. The whole point of a mechanical board for me is its solidity and reliability, and yes, you can go play all crazy with caps and so forth, and you do, and you get friends with people in the community and everything as well, and it becomes its own hobby in this expansive way like that. But if there's anything which can undermine that, it is unreliability. And anytime I encounter anything, that's where I'm like the most picky of all, and I think it's a practical pickiness as well, is when anything starts to break down, I'm not having it. That is not for me at all. I expect quality out of something which costs more than 100 quid, especially when it costs more than 200 quid. So, fortunately, I got it. The Real Force has proven to be rock solid over the years. The HHKB, I have used this for ungodly amounts of time, and it's amazing. And this Filco is probably going to be, well, certainly going to be my most used MX board for the years ahead. It is solid, and it's nice actually to have something quiet to put some of my prettiest caps on. And that, I suppose, is a natural point to end a review, which clearly is unscripted, and so I guess the way to end it is to say, see you later.